Welcome to Muslim Apologetics Australia. In this video, we're going to talk about the moral issues when it comes to atheism versus religion. As you are aware, many atheists like Sam Harris or Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens in the past, and many of the modern atheists, militant atheists, they will constantly ridicule Islam on certain moral issues. For instance, I'll bring up the Prophet Muhammad's marriage to young Aisha at the time. This is the biggest sticking point for them. One of their biggest criticisms against Islam. Of course, Christians follow this methodology too. But this video is directed to atheists, and I'm going to show you that atheists themselves who actually try and target Muslims and Islam because of this, they themselves shoot themselves in the foot. I'm going to demonstrate and prove to you that atheists have got no leg to stand on when it comes to moral judgments. And I'll show you why. Because atheists, depending on a certain circumstance or a certain situation, the moral values that they hold are meaningless and very artificial, and it changes depending on the circumstance. So, for example, these atheists who like to judge religion and say, you know, Islam massacres people, Christianity and the Crusade have massacred people, you know, they committed all these murders, they committed all of this genocide. And then they'll talk about, you know, sex with minors. And then they will talk about how slavery is barbaric. And if you look at the West, they are the pinnacle of true morality. They know the difference between right and wrong. They are the people we should look up to, the Westerners, the free thinkers, the enlightened. And I ask these people 3 questions based on this. Because the atheists, they have strong views about religion, that it allows massacring, that it allows pedophilia, that allows rape. These are the accusations they make. Of course, you can look at my video below. I'll post a video below. The Prophet ﷺ, he married Aisha at a time when she was 9 years old, yes. And there was no consummation of marriage at 6 years old. It was 9 years old. He waited for Aisha to reach 9, and that's what the hadith say. But of course, the critics will always point out, oh, no, she was 6. No, but if you look, she was 9. That's when the consummation happened. And this was 1400 years ago. We don't know the biological development of girls. Maybe they developed a lot quicker. Maybe back then a 9-year-old was considered like a 14 or 15-year-old because they matured faster. Their bodies were probably different based on the geographic location. We know that people can change depending on how long ago it was and so forth. Who knows? But they're judging the Prophet based on this. But I'm going to show you that these atheists, they have no leg to stand on when they're criticizing religion, that religion allows rape, that religion allows murder and genocide, that religion allows pedophilia. Ask these atheists. Remember, the standard, their moral standard is that all of this is bad. I agree. These are bad things. I agree with them that these are bad things. But as a Muslim, I can say no to these things. We're against pedophilia with minors. We're against rape. We're against murder and genocide. We're against this. Even if you try and manipulate the Quran and the Hadith, even if you try and manipulate it, we are against this. But I am going to show you that atheists themselves, they will justify pedophilia, murder, and rape. If you watched Sam Harris, if you look at his books, he actually justified rape. He said that in nature, if you look at the evolutionary makeup in nature, it was rape. One species had to rape the other species because it's not always consensual. One species had to rape another species, which gave rise to life, right? So although he has a moral objection, he has a justification that this is sometimes necessary in order to start the creation process. This is what they believe, these atheists. So, if you said to an atheist, for example, if there were 2 men and 2 women, adult women and adult men, and they were on an island, and let's suppose, hypothetically speaking, a comet hit the world, and it destroyed all of nature, most of nature. But it happened to be that on this island, these 4 couples existed, and they understood that they are the only existence on the planet. And suppose these women didn't consent to sexual intimacy, despite the men urging them and saying, look, if we don't have sexual intimacy, then we can't procreate. This will end up the end of civilization and human beings will go extinct. And so they constantly try and persuade these women into sexual intimacy. And suppose these women say, no, we want civilization to end. We don't want to have intimacy with you. My right is my right. And suppose these men say, get stuff, we don't care about your right. And they start raping these women. And of course, what would be the reaction? Suppose these women give birth and they start to procreate, and then slowly, human beings start to populate the earth again. What would the atheist say? Would he object to the rape? Of course, he'd say it was morally wrong, it was indecent, it was horrific, but he would justify it. He'd say, well, at the end of the day, it brought something good. From this evil, something good happened. Look, now civilization is now flourished because of these 2 men who forced themselves upon these 2 women. So what happened to the atheist moral standard? The atheist moral standard now shifted. Before they were saying, it's disgusting, it's wrong, it's barbaric, how dare these men rape these women? But now they're justifying, they're saying, yes, it was wrong, but it was right at the same time, because these men didn't just think about their sexual desires. These men thought about procreating and bringing human civilization back into existence. But I'll show you why Islam is better. Because according to the Islamic theology, we can't rape. We're not allowed to rape. So, which is more evil, Islam or atheism, given the same situation or scenario? And the reason why Muslims would forbid from doing this, because they'd say, we trust in Allah, Allah has decreed the world to end and all the population to end, and we believe in the hereafter. So the Muslim will be patient and leave the affairs to Allah on the Day of Judgment, because we believe in a different existence. But the atheist does not believe in a different existence. His existence is on this earth. This dunya, this earth is his paradise. This is the only existence he knows. He doesn't believe in the afterlife. Therefore, they will actually encourage these 2 men to go and rape these 2 women, so that they can come into existence and appreciate all the good things that this world has to offer. All of this claim about women's rights, about how we should believe in consent, consensual intimacy, All of this will go out the window. All of this stuff that they keep preaching about tolerance, about not abusing women, about not physically harming women. All of this will go out the window in order to bring humanity back into existence. They don't care about the feelings of women. Damn about your feelings. We want human existence. They will choose human existence to flourish over the feelings of women. But it's interesting because these atheists like to criticize some of the Quranic text or the Hadith text and say, oh, Muslims conquered a certain part of the Arabian Peninsula or certain parts of Persia or Rome, and when they went there, they took the women as slaves and they sexually advanced these women to procreate and forced them, concubines, they talk about concubines, right? They say, oh, look, Islam allowed rape and so forth in this circumstance. But when the Muslim theologians say that this was allowed by Allah just for this specific period, this was allowed because if the Muslims did not take the spoils of war and the concubines from the enemy women and did not impregnate them, this would mean the end of the Muslim civilization. Because remember, Muslims were in a minority. If they didn't procreate, then it will be the end of them. Many empires did this. Many empires, for their own survival, forced themselves onto the women of the enemy tribe. And if they didn't do that, it would mean that this would have been their destruction. And it's funny that the atheist critic, would say, oh no, that was morally wrong and Allah shouldn't have allowed that. But the same atheist would say to those two men that I mentioned on an island, they'd say, we want you to go rape these women because if you don't, then our existence won't come back. Notice the double standards, the hypocrisy. Wallahi, you know how Russia and Ukraine are fighting? Russia and Ukraine are fighting, right? Now, if most of the men are dying and there's no help coming from the outside world and most of these men are dying, and we know that the women and children have left Ukraine, you know what the Westerners would do? They would send women in there. They'd actually send these women back in there forcefully. They'll send women actually forcefully in there, even if they weren't willing to go back. They'd force those women to go back to Ukraine so they can be slept, so they can sleep with these Ukrainian men, so they can give birth, so a constant new generation keeps coming back to fight the Russians. But the same hypocrites will turn around and criticize Muslims about sexual brides. They call it the sexual brides. Do you remember when women from UK, Muslim women from UK or Australia or whatever, remember when they were going to Iraq, becoming sexual brides, and this was all mocked and made fun of and so forth? Do you remember this? Right? This was all put in the media and they were mocking it and so forth, right? These people accept the same standard had ISIS. If ISIS was Ukrainians, they would applaud this. Honestly, they'd applaud this. They'd say, this is for the survival of the Ukrainian army to fight against the aggressors. This is what they'd say. So are we seeing a justification of rape? Yes, we're seeing it through the atheistic mentality. What about massacre? Let's talk about massacre, because the atheists say we're against people being massacred. And Daniel Hakikato, another Muslim great thinker, spoke about this, and I'll bring that same point he brought up. And he said that if, suppose the scientists and the community said, we need to remove 30% of the population, 30% of the population to save the planet. And 30% is more than, of some of the atheists said, oh, it's easier. We can remove 30% of the population. We can remove the elderly. We can remove those who have been, let's say they're in intensive care, in palliative care. We can remove those. We can remove the very sick. They're talking about the natural, like natural selection, survival of the fittest. We can remove these. We can move but no, I'm not saying 10% because that will only account for maybe 10% of the population. I'm talking about, let's say 30 to 40%. Suppose 40%. So this means that you're going to have to also execute children. You're going to execute fathers and mothers. You're going to have to execute teenagers. Suppose you need to do this in order to save the rest of humanity. And if you don't, then humanity is finished. Suppose this was going to happen and you had to make this judgment. There is no out of it. There's no other solution. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, there is no other solution. And I know what some atheists are saying, but you're talking about hypothetics. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. I understand it's not going to happen, but suppose it is going to happen. Suppose a comet is about to hit the earth and we don't have enough vegetation. We're not going to have enough, food. We need to wipe out automatically. We need to euthanize 40% of the population tomorrow. The atheists, a large portion of these atheists who say, we don't believe in getting massacred. We don't believe in people dying. We don't believe that you should massacre a population. These atheists will actually say, yes, okay. In order to save the planet, we will now massacre 40% of the population. See, as Muslims, we wouldn't believe in this. Why? Why wouldn't we believe in this? Because murder is murder. And if that's what Allah has willed, that's what Allah has willed. We don't have a motivation because we don't believe that this earth is the only existence. We believe in the Akhirah, we believe in the afterlife. Even the Christians believe in this. So the Muslims will join the Christians in this belief not to murder 40% of the population. And if God has so willed that the earth is going to end, we'll let it be. But the atheist is not going to hold that view. But the reason why an atheist is not going to hold that view, because he doesn't believe in the afterlife. He doesn't believe in the day of judgment. He doesn't believe that Allah will reward and give people another, as Christians believe, another earth, but as Muslims we believe another heaven, a real heaven that's different from the heaven of the earth. Real paradise, real truth. So who's better off? Religious people, Muslims or Christians or the atheists? Well, if you believe in the atheist concept, you're going to have to line up. If you're one of the 40%, you're going to have to line up. You're going to have to get executed. If you allow to be ruled by these atheists. But if you're ruled by Christians and Muslims, this is not the case. So you have more protection under Muslims and Christians and Jews than you have protection under atheists. And now let's come to the last point. Let's come to pedophilia. Let's come to pedophilia. Suppose that a comet hit the earth. Suppose destruction happens. And there was a man, and this man was 63 years old. Suppose this man was 63 years old. And suppose that the only existence was two female and they were children. And they were both 6 years old. These two children were 6 years old. Or suppose one is 6 years old and suppose the other one is 8 or 9 years old. let's be fair and we'll add a third child. We'll say that other third child is 12 years old. 6-year-old, 9-year-old, and a 12-year-old. Suppose. These are the only three that exist. These are the only four that exist. The 63-year-old man, the 6-year-old child, the 10-year-old child, and the 12-year-old child. Suppose. And let's say the 63-year-old man has got terminal cancer or illness. Terminal cancer or illness. And he only has, suppose, 12 months to live. Suppose. The doctor said to him, you have, before this tragedy happened, you have 12 months to live. Suppose this man said, I'm the last man on earth. I have terminal illness, terminal cancer. I can't wait for these small children to grow up. I have to have sexual intimacy with them now because we need to start the creation process again. Will atheists justify this pedophilic act? Yes, they would say it's disgusting, it's abhorrent, it's wrong, but it is necessary. We need to do it. They will now justify pedophilia. Suppose the man has sex with the 6-year-old, 10-year-old, and he's trying with the 13-year-old. He's trying with all of them. He's trying with the 12-year-old. She's not falling pregnant. So he goes to the 10-year-old, trying with the 10-year-old, then trying with the 6-year-old. Impregnating all of them. As hard as he can, he tries. Now, of course, the atheists will say this is disgusting, this is abhorrent. This is wrong. And yes, if those small children, yes, I agree, it is wrong. In this day and age, we know that a 6-year-old is a child. We know that a 9-year-old is a child. It's not 1400 years ago like the Prophet ﷺ's time. We live in a different era. Girls generally don't mature as quick. Who knows? Will they still justify this? See, in Islam, we won't. We will say as Muslims, no, we can't justify this. Because it's a different era. These children haven't become adolescents. They haven't become mature yet. But the atheists wouldn't care about maturity. Because if they care about maturity, this man is going to die from cancer. They can't wait for this man to die from cancer. Whether these girls are mature or not, they don't care. They want to see civilization come back. So they will justify sexual intimacy with a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 12-year-old. A 63-year-old man having sex with these 3 children, they will justify it. And suppose the 12-year-old didn't exist, and only the 6-year-old and the 9-year-old or the 10-year-old existed. They will justify, they will force this man, go and have intimacy with these children so you can bring creation back. So it will give us a chance, some hope. Yes, maybe the children will be stillborn. Most likely they probably wouldn't make it. But even if it's a little bit of a hope, it might, you need something to start with. It's better than having nothing, right? Suppose these 2 little girls didn't exist, then there'd be no hope. But suppose they existed, there is some hope to bring creation back. Because you can't rely on science to bring creation back. If all of human existence didn't exist and we only became fossilized specimens, they know they can't bring that back. But something from living, there is a possibility they can bring civilization back. So the atheists will justify this. The same atheists that were looking at it as abhorrent and disgusting and vile, they will now justify it. So long as it brings creation back. So what did we prove here? we proved, depending on the circumstance, that these atheists will justify rape, they'll justify genocide and mass killings, they would justify pedophilia. Yes, the same ones that try and ridicule religion, they themselves will justify it based on this particular circumstance. So don't ever believe these atheists when they want to try and hold this moral superior ground that everything else is inferior to them and they are the intellectual, they are enlightened, they are the pinnacle of true moral values. But when shit hits the fan, excuse me for my French, when shit hits the fan, they are the same to disown their moral values. Thank you. So the next time they try and ridicule you, send this message to them. Share, rate this video with them. And let's see. Watch how they duck and hide. Watch how they no longer can respond. Watch how they duck their heads. Watch how they hide in the comment sections. Watch how they start sending mockeries and ridicules when they can't address the points that I've made. Watch how they have stumbled in the dark. How dare they? How dare they? What ground do they have to ridicule us? What ground do they have to ridicule us, I ask? So where are these atheists? Hiding in the comments, trying to ridicule Islam and Muslims, or ridicule Christianity and so forth. Where are they? Calling themselves humanists. You're humanists, are you? Humanists when it comes to prolonging your own existence by committing mass murder and genocide and pedophilia in order to preserve humanism. Yeah, you're a humanist. While at the same time breaking your own set of morals about how you believe in, tolerance, how you believe in humanity, how you believe that you should end suffering, how you believe that you shouldn't oppress someone, that human beings all have rights. But in order to preserve your humanistic values, your humanism, you need to commit pedophilia, murder, genocide in order to preserve your existence. The hypocrisy is found there. And post this video, wallahi, they'll all be hiding. They'll all be hiding. They can't respond. They'll try and ridicule you in the comments. That's all they have. But they can't address the contention. They can't address the points in the video. They can't. They'll bring up all of these emotional arguments and they won't address the points. Because they deep down know that in order for them to believe in their human existence, they need to trample upon human beings, whether it's genocide, murder, or pedophilia, or rape. Yes, this Sam Harris, same person. These people were believing, they believe in rape in early evolutionary history, that they believed in the human evolution and that the creation of existence, there was rape. And this rape was necessary in order to spark evolution and creation, for biological diversity, for our existence, that a form of rape was beneficial. And these ex-Muslims, these murtads, going around saying, we left Islam because Islam is barbaric and Islam is evil and Islam believes in this and Islam believes in murder and genocide and rape and pedophilia. Yet they appeal to atheism. This is the atheism that they appeal to. What a joke. Thank you. Have a good day, folks.